Hello guys, back for another tutorial again today. I'm going to be looking to show you a bunch of different skills today, looking at special effects, looking at sort of touch-ups, looking at various different things that we can do. I've chosen a random photo here just because it gives us a chance to use a lot of different tools all at the same time to try and create a finished effect. So what you can see there is roughly what we're going for by the end of this tutorial, that we'd be able to create something looking a little bit like this, Todoroki from My Hero Academia. So we're looking to create fire effects, we're looking to create some ice effects, but there's a few other things in there we want to do as well. You'll notice here, I haven't done it on this one yet, but we'll do it on the final version. He's got a wristband on that's kind of ruining the image a little bit, so we'll be looking at if we can remove that. And we'll also do some basic colour touch-ups on this as well, to see what we can make happen with that. So we'll get started straight away. Remembering from last time, it's usually best to create your own file size that you're going to work on. Now for this, I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to use the original image. So we can always just drag a file from our desktop into Photoshop to create a new file. And you can see here I've created a new file. Straight away you can see kind of the major differences between these two images. This one looks popping, this one a little bit more flat. Obviously no special effects, no nothing. Now the only problem with doing it this way is that when it comes in, this photo will be set as the background. So the very first thing I'm going to want to do is layer that from the background, like so. So a quick right click, layer from background, and that just stops it being locked. It means you can edit this image, means that you can start doing different bits of work on it. And the second thing we probably want to do is actually just get a quick mask of our model. So in my other tutorial I showed you very basically how to do a mask, so I'm going to do the same thing again here. Just quickly using the quick select tool to drag around our character and get as much of him as we can. What we don't want is any of the background. So any background is a bad shout. And what you'll notice here, unlike the other images I did where it was straight onto a nice plain background, this one is not a plain background. You're going to have things getting in the way, trying to make it slightly more difficult for you to get the cutout. Not what is easier is his hair is fairly straightforward, but on certain other ones you'll find that this becomes slightly more difficult. You'll also notice in here you're going to want to zoom in. I always just zoom in by holding the Alt key and then using the scroll on my mouse. It's the quickest way to do it. There are a couple of other options to you though. You can also use the plus. I believe it's the Control plus, Control minus, or Command plus, Command minus, depending on what you're using, to zoom in and out as well. You have slightly more control if you're using the Alt and the scroll option though. Okay, that's not too bad. I'll see if I can sort out this up here. Unlike last time where I was using images that I'd found online, this is one of my images, just to make it a little bit easier, because I knew that this image would work for what I wanted it to work for, rather than having to come up with something random. So here we go. We're getting pretty close now with this. You notice I'm trying to keep out as much background as possible. It's not the end of the world because we're not actually removing the background, but it's just useful to have cutouts of your model to to work from while you're in the file. It's one of those things that if I know that I'm going to be doing a lot of work on touch-ups or special effects or anything like that, it is useful to still pull the model out from the background. That'll do for the time being. So as I said, if it's slightly off, it's not going to be the end of the world. You'll notice down here there's quite a bit actually where I was missing it. My computer's being kind to me. The last time I did this, that one little bit of his arm took ages. So we're going to do our refine edge again, and you can see there straight away that we've got a lovely decent pull. The vast majority of this is looking very, very on point. I'll just add a little bit in here. And it should be pretty good actually. I lost a little bit there, so I'm going to zoom in and just use the Alt key to drag back over this. If you haven't done this before, guys, feel free to have a look at my other video where I do fully explain how to do all of these bits. I'm just doing it quickly here to make my life a little bit easier later on. So if you do know how to do this, you can skip straight through to the point of the video where I start talking about how to do the next parts. So that's not too bad. We could go in and sort of do this. I'm aware what's going to actually happen. Not too bad. We're going to do a new layer of layer mask. We're going to add some smoothing and some contrast just to the edges. And you'll notice that once we pull this out, oh, my computer's running a little slow. We've got our model. At the moment, he's on a blank background. We are going to add the background back in. So you can see all I've got here is the model pulled out from the background, and then we've still got the background image there. Because we don't want to delete the background, we're keeping that. There's nothing wrong with it. It works for what we want. So it's great. We've got our model, we've got our background. First thing we're going to do today in terms of getting rid of things is just focusing here on this little bit, on this element here, and I'm going to add a layer above. I'm going to label this. In fact, we can spend this time now just to label all of these, but I'm going to label this. This is bracelet removal. This is model, and this is background. Go away. So we're just going to go on this bracelet removal, and I'm going to teach you very quickly how to use the clone stamp tool. Now the clone stamp tool is awesome because what it does is it enables you to copy one part to another. For example, we can use the Alt key to select, so you can see when I press the Alt button, my paintbrush tool changes from that shape to this one, and that is letting us know that it's in select mode and we can select an area. So for example, we can select his eye and we can paint in his eye wherever we want. Now, other than the fact that you can create monstrosities with that, for example, clicking on his eye and drawing it on here, so he suddenly has an eye on his cheek. Other than that, we can also fix mistakes. Now, what you want to make sure, which I've just made the mistake of 3 or 4 times in a row, make sure you click on the layer that you want to apply this to. You don't want to put it on your background layer, you want to put it on this new layer up here. You can also select which layers are being sort of sourced, so where you're getting this information from. I usually put it as current and below, but you can have it set to just the current layer or all layers, so that will include layers above it as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and see if we can get rid of bits of this. Oh, my screen is locked up. That's not good. Let's see if it's going to work at all. Oh, it is. My computer's just being slow. There we go. So we're going to look to see if we can get rid of some of this on here. And you can see I've selected a bit of his skin from further down. and I am just working through to try and remove as much of this as I can. Now this takes a little bit of skill, a little bit of practice, because you are effectively drawing here. I am in no means a good drawer. My artistic skills are very limited, but just through practice you can kind of copy what already exists, to try and make it make sense. You can see there, you're not really going to notice the issues that I just put in there, but it has adjusted it. We can come in and we can do the same thing here and try and remove a bit of this. Obviously I've just used a random part of that building. I don't like that, so I'm gonna see if I can use, where would be good. It's the same building, it'll do. So you are just painting over this bit. This is all about just painting on where you want things to go. And bear in mind, once you finish with this, it should clean everything up nicely. Should. I'm being rubbish at this right now. Remember, you can always use Control Z to go back if you have made mistakes. I regularly do, so don't worry, it's not an issue if you're not doing it perfect first time. No one expects you to. And you'll notice as well, I keep accidentally painting over little bits of the bit that I'm trying to remove, because I'm not paying quite enough attention to what I'm sourcing all the time. So I'm just going to see if I can finish off his arm here. Not too bad. And again, you're not going to particularly notice that. I am going to do some effects on that bit as well, so it's going to have even less to play with. When we get around to it. Yeah, that's not too bad. Let's get rid of this last little yellow bit. You can make this way more efficient than what I've done here. This is not the best representation of good use of this skill. It's not the best that I've ever done it. There are certainly better attempts at its use. I keep forgetting what I'm doing. So just keep remembering to source where you want it from, and then going over. In this case, I'm trying to make it as smooth as possible to go between the two. And you'll notice that actually most of it's not working too badly. That little bit there didn't quite work, so I'm going to go over that. And maybe just there too. And this little bit, I can grab from there. Oh, that didn't work great. Especially with lines, it works less well. If you've got the benefit of not having lines, will work even better. So yeah, from there we've got our removal, and it doesn't look too bad. It doesn't look perfect, because of his hand shape there. It's unlikely that I'm going to get a perfect perfect kind of edge to this, but that doesn't look too bad. No one's going to notice. So So that's the basics of using the clone stamp tool. Now what I'm actually going to do from this point, I'm going to keep this model. I'm going to quickly group these up, and I'm going to call this group model, and I'm going to duplicate this group, and then I'm actually going to convert it to a smart object. What this does is it just merges those layers together into a single thing. But I'm also going to take this selection that I did before, and I'm going to do a refine edge on it. So if you ever want to select a layer, you can hold Control or Command on a Mac and click on the layer, and it will select the whole layer. If you want to do that on a masking layer, you can do the same thing, and it will very quickly select the mask for you or the layer for you. So I can now go to Refine Edge and do a new layer with Layer Mask on this model copy and get the exact same pull that I had before. So if I turn off these layers, you can see there that I've got my original version of him. We can actually go in, now there's a little bit less of him, we can sort of get rid of some of these bits that we don't want. I'm doing this really roughly for time purposes. But yeah, you can go in and spend a little bit more time over this if you like, to make sure that you remove everything nicely. Yeah, that's fine. So we've got a decent pull on him there. I'll call this original. Oh, didn't mean to have that little star. And then we can save this as model. And we can hide that original one. Right, the next thing we're going to do, if we come back to this original, you'll notice that they're pretty similar, even at this point. But there's lots of little bits that we're going to start wanting to add. I'm going to start off with the snow in the... In fact, let's start off with the fire in the back, because that's probably a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, and you can kind of understand what's going on with that then. So this is going to be the first time we use blending layers. So we're going to drag in to here our fireball. You can do this with lots of different things, but I quite like this image here. I will upload all these files so you can grab them. Here's fireball, and pop it on there. And you'll notice that straight away one of the big issues is that it's got black background. That's not actually a problem because we've got blending layers. So if you come over here to the blending layers, you'll see a bunch of different stuff pop up. And you'll probably go, I have no idea what any of that means. But that's fine because I'm going to sort of explain it very quickly to you now. So this basically decides how a layer interacts with other layers. Normally it's just set to normal, and that's all you have to worry about. But you can change that. So you can have a play with it and different things will happen. And you'll see if I go on darken, you'll have seen that his hand has suddenly started to show through. If I go on multiply, that will even show through more. What we are actually looking for here is what's called screen. Screen is very useful because what it does is it only shows things that are lighter. So if you go on lighten, this is the same kind of effect. It basically only shows things that are lighter than what's behind it, what's below it in terms of the layers. So screen will literally just show the flame because the black is going to get removed. Now that's all good and well on its own, and you can see straight away that we've got a very basic fireball starting to appear. Now what I would suggest is actually to get stronger versions of this effect. Sometimes what you want to do is just copy that. So I've just done a Command J or a Control J on that, but you can also just duplicate the layer from there. I'm just using the shortcut. And you'll get a sort of brighter version of that because you've got two layers on top of each other. You can also control the opacity on these layers from here, so you can control how much of that second one you want to apply. Usually that is pretty useful. So what we can do is we can layer up our effects here. So I'm going to bring in the embers as well. They're great. Don't need them quite that big. We're just going to chuck them in on here. And again, same as before, I'm going to put this slightly lower so it's behind that. What we don't want is the black, so we're going to set it to screen. Now you can have a play, you can use some of these like a soft light. That's going to have more of the black in there, and a hard light's going to have the whole black. But sometimes those might be useful. But for now I would go with the screen one, because that's going to get you just the light parts, just the bits that you want. And again, we can double that up so it's going to have more effect, or alternatively we can double it up and sort of move it so that we get a little bit more of the effect in there. That's quite nice actually, I quite like that. So we've got all these. I'm going to stick these all in a group quickly, labelled fire. And straight away we've got quite a nice effect. If we come back to the original, I added multiple layers so that they went off in different angles, but I actually am quite happy with that as it is. The one thing I am going to do, I'm going to double up this one again and make a slightly smaller version to go right in the middle. And then I'm going to make another one and go smaller again. Go right in the middle. That to me looks like a pretty good fire hand, to be honest. And it almost looks like there's a wind blowing all of the embers in a specific direction, so I quite like that. I'm going to move this ever so slightly. No, I'm not. Yeah, that was good where it was. So there's our fire effect. That's very straightforward, very easy to get it on there. If we do want to go through and make that have a little bit more punch, what we can do as well, and this is a bit of a cheat, sometimes it works nicely, sometimes it doesn't, we can add a new layer like this. So we're going to layer, new layer. This is a good way to create layers if you're taking more time about it, rather than just clicking the blank layer tool down there. What we're going to do on this, we're going to change it to soft light, and we're going to say to fill it with soft light neutral colour. What this does, it literally just creates a blank grey slate for us. So you can see there, it's a blank grey slate, and it's set to soft light. What we can then do is take the burn tool on a fairly low exposure, and we can just do a little bit of painting. And what you'll notice is that when you do this, my computer's being a little bit slow, it starts to darken areas where you're painting. And what that will do is it will bring out more of the original image for you. So you can see, not massive, but enough that it makes it that little bit more interesting. See, that's quite nice for me. Obviously, if you want, you can then add smoke. Personally, I don't think it works particularly well in this situation. I've got some black smoke there for you if you want though. And this is already a PNG, so it will actually just go on without any issues. And you'll notice as soon as I did that, it brought in lots and lots of colour back into the fire. but we could lower the opacity on that slightly, and we could also, if we wanted to, just go in with a layer mask and mask out the bits that we don't want. That would help if I was on black. Remember, if you are doing a layer mask with something like smoke, you probably want a nice kind of broad edge. There, something like that. Not too bad. I don't particularly enjoy that effect. You could lighten it down a little bit more, but I don't think it really adds anything to it, the smoke. So personally, from my point of view, I'm going to get rid of that. I don't think it works, but you can leave it. So once you've got your fire in, let's have another look at the original. We're going to want to start working on this front side, the ice hand, and this one's a little bit more fun. So I'm going to go back to my original model, and I'm going to select. I'm going to use this to select just his hand, basically. Because I've already modelled him, what I can do is use the control click on the layer mask here and grab all of that. I'm then just going to use this to select all of this part. No, I'm not. I did that wrong. I'm going to come up here and use the subtraction option and subtract all of this part from my selection, and you'll see I've just got his arm there. Just got his arm. In fact, let's go. I'm going to undo that. I want a little bit more of his arm. There we go. Let's get his whole arm in before we do this. So I've just selected that part of him. I'm going to put that back to edition so that I don't forget later on. So we've just got his arm, and we're going to do something interesting here. We're going to literally we're going to duplicate this layer, and we're going to delete that layer mask, and then we're going to hit the layer mask button. And what you'll notice now, if I remove these, is that I've just got his arm. Just his arm and the flying space fire. And what we can do with this one arm here is start applying some effects to it. So I'm actually gonna convert that to a smart object, and I'm actually going to rasterize that as well, because once you've done that, that's just turned that into pixel data, where all the rest of this is linked back to the original image. This is now just pixel data. So I can go up here and go to filter, and I can start adding some interesting filters to it. So I'm going to go into my filter gallery, and I'm going to find plastic wrap. Hopefully you guys have got this. If not, you can have a play with something else. But plastic wrap is my choice. Oh my gosh, that's really zoomed in. Let's zoom back out. I've forgotten a step here. Let's go back. Okay, so once you've got your arm cut out, we're going to do some interesting things to it. We're going to start off just by applying a couple of simple effects to it to give it some more contrast. So if we come up here to layer, image, we can go to image adjustments, and we've got a bunch of adjustments up here that we can use. Now quite often I would tell you to use the adjustment layers, but because we want this directly applied to this layer, I am going to use these because it's slightly quicker. So we're going to use brightness and contrast quickly, and I'm going to lower the brightness and increase contrast. Now that doesn't look great as it stands, but actually not too worried about that because I'm using it for something specific. So don't worry too much. We're going to hit that button and you'll see that that effect has instantly applied to that. We've still got the original, so it's not a problem. No problem at all. We're then going to desaturate this. There's a couple of ways we can do that. We can go image adjustments and desaturate, but you can see there that it also gives you how to desaturate that. Shift, Control and U and you'll see it's made it black and white, and that's how we want it. And we're then going to go up to filter and filter gallery. The filter gallery is awesome. It's got loads of different things you can apply to it. I'm going to zoom out so that you can see the image when it appears. There it is. So you can see there what I'm working on. We're going to use plastic wrap. Now I've already got the settings set up for this roughly. I'm going to have a play with them to see if I can get something nice. Generally speaking, you want the detail as high as possible. My computer is really going slow now. But you might want to play with this a little bit to get the best possible answers. What you're looking for is some nice icy looking effect on the hand. It might even work better if I take the detail down slightly. Yeah, detail needs to be up. But highlight strength, definitely, and smoothness, you can play around with these two until you get something icy looking, and that'll do for me now. But feel free as well to check out these other filters in here. They are quite fun, and you'll see straight away there we've got a kind of icy looking hand. This works even better once you switch. Some people use screen on this. Personally, I use hard light. I think that looks best for creating this effect. And even more, if you invert that, you're going to get, where there'd normally be shadow, you're going to get ice. So soft light might even, no. So some people will use screen on that. I don't particularly like that. I quite like the hard light look. And obviously that kind of looks icy now. This edge, I don't like that, so I'm going to add a layer mask to this, and I am going to take a paintbrush with black as my colour, and I'm just going to brush these edges so that actually the ice effect kind of looks like it's creeping up his arm a little bit. Just to finish off then, that obviously doesn't look quite right, so what we're going to add, and there's a couple of ways to do this, we're going to make it blue. You could add a hue saturation layer, so from up here, and then clipping mask that so it just applies to this layer, and then you could shift this towards blue. We're going to hit colorize so that it will actually colorize to blue as well, and you can see there it's going blue. It's quite nice. We can brighten that up a little bit maybe, and we've got sort of the icy hand look going there. Now actually the way that I quite often do this is I will just create a layer and a clipping mask, and I will just take blue and draw over the hand and set that to colour, and you can see there that it's just shifted the colour to what I wanted it to be. I think that worked quite nicely for doing it. So hue saturation level is an hue and saturation adjustment layer is an option, or you can just paint a colour layer above it. Funnily enough, when that was on normal, that up there, that looks quite like a hand that has been iced over. So the other alternative is that you could go just for normal and lower the opacity on that a little bit, and you're getting quite a good effect there as well. But generally colour, and you'll have your effect there. You could even do it as two layers, where one is set to colour and one is set to normal, and maybe just lower that normal one. That don't look too bad. You can have a play with these effects to get something that works for you. So I'm not going to say that there's a hard and fast rule on it. Obviously the next part then, once we've got that in, is getting the snow, and you'll have noticed I've got a snow in here for you, as well as some white smoke that you can use to build up a white smoke effect. Now the snow, you'll notice, is just black on white. I'm literally going to duplicate this group over straight into my file, and you'll see we've got some snow on here. Now this is actually taken from another image which is, as you can see, much larger. So what we can start doing is changing the size on this slightly. Do we want it bigger or smaller? Tell you what, the size on that snow is not bad for background snow. I'm going to leave that as is. You'll notice it's taken a second because this is rather big and my computer doesn't like it. But what we could do as well is we can duplicate these layers, and I'm actually going to convert this to a smart object just because it will make it quicker. Make sure that you set it to screen so that you get rid of that black. The other one's already set to it. And what I'm going to suggest we do, I'm going to rasterize this layer, and I'm going to make it smaller. Not too much smaller. That's probably fine. I'm just going to make that smaller just so that we've got some small particles that we can play with. Because then what we can do is we can layer these on top of each other to make a small blizzard in his hand. I'm just going to turn this as well, just to give it some difference. I'll create one more. So that's starting to get quite extreme in there. And again, I'm going to show you a useful way here of grouping that up. So just shove that in a group. And we're going to add a layer mask to the whole group. So rather than just grouping bits, we're going to group the whole group. And I'm going to invert that by using Control I, so you can't actually see it anymore. We've just got this basic stuff. And then we can paint it on using white in this one area where we want more particles, more going on. Straight away we've got that effect of having the snow coming out of his hand. We can be more pedantic and make the snow go behind his hand, but I'm not too worried about that for now. You might also want to take this and with your original snow, I've not painted this snow on his face at all. This one does go on his face, so I'm going to go over here and using black I'm just going to go over his face and remove those bits of snow so we get him so it doesn't cover up that bit. And you'll notice that that looks quite nice because you can still see all the snow, but it's just not covering his face, so you've got that little bit of control there. Final bits to add. Oh, not that. We're going to take white smoke and just start piling that in as well. The white smoke should just look like icy steam coming off of him, which will look quite nice once we've got it in there. Again, we're going to use screen to get rid of the black. What's happened there is you can see that the contrast is not quite high enough on this original. So I'm actually going to take this original and adjust it slightly. So I'm going to rasterize this layer. And I'm going to go image adjustments, brightness and contrast. In fact, let's do levels. So we're going to push the blacks to the right, And you can see there that a lot of the black is going blacker, and I'm going to push the whites to the left, and I'm just going to push this slightly to the right as well. And when we press OK, that should now make it so that you just see the smoke, and that's indeed what's happened there. So that's quite nice, and we can make it a little bigger. What we don't want is it to end up on his face. And you'll notice that that's not perfect. Again, we've got his hand there, so I'm going to actually select my model and then go on here and create a clipping mask. Oh, not like that, did it the wrong way around, apologies. I'm going to create a clipping mask on here, and then I'm going to select my model layer using the command or control click method on that, and then I'm just going to take black and I'm going to go over the hands, basically going over the things that should be appearing in front of the smoke, so that the smoke just appears behind them. And you'll notice straight away that that's worked quite nicely. It looks like it's coming from the palm of his hand instead of from outside his hand. And we can take off some of this top bit as well, to better blend the smoke into the background. So that's not too bad. Let's add this big plume of smoke. Do we need that one? Nah, let's use the other one. So, as I was saying, a lot of this is just trial and error, basically. Doing slightly different things to try and get an interesting look at the end of it all. That's pretty nice. Let's use that. Again, I'm going to rasterize this layer, and then I'm going to image adjustments, levels it. Levels is pretty nice. These are your blacks. That pushing it to the right makes more things fully black, basically. These are your greys. Moving that to the right makes more things darker. And then these are your whites, and moving that to the left makes things brighter. If you move this to the left, it makes things brighter as well. Generally speaking, I think for this purpose it moves slightly to the right, it makes it better. So that's that. We're going to set this to screen, and you'll see it's layered on there, and you've got some nice secondary smoke. I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the other layer, which is add a layer mask, select my model, and use this as an opportunity to get rid of the smoke going in front of the hands, and now it is back in his palm. We can also take this and just breeze the edges so that we don't have anything weird there. So that's not looking too bad. The last thing that I did, which I think adds just that last little bit, is I literally took blue and painted on here, set colour, so that there was kind of like a blue effect going on. Again, I don't want this, whoops, I don't want this really in front of his hand, so I'm going to model his hand, go up to the blue, and I'm just going to rub out the bits that I don't want using a rubber. I don't want it hitting his hand there, I just want it there. And we might want to lower the opacity on that a little bit. But that doesn't look too bad. It looks like he's definitely got some powers going. A couple of last bits to finish up this idea. Couple of last ideas. If you go to your model original layer, what we can do is we can start adding some adjustment layers to that. So I'm going to add this layer here, this levels, I'm going to pop that underneath there. So this will apply it to, in fact, yeah, that's, I've clipping masked it, so it's just going to apply to the model layer. And you can see I'm going to lower that slightly, yeah, push that down slightly and push this up. And you can see straight away that's created quite a nice look on the model. And we can do something similar on the background as well. Because we've kept them separate, we can actually push that much further down and be a bit more extreme with the background even. I've probably pushed the blacks a little bit too hard there. You can see how nice that sort of brings out the background, bringing out a bit more colour, creating some more contrast on it. You don't always want to have it like that. I've done this because I quite like my images quite dark. And just to finish up, we may also want to create a layer above this layer, and we might want to take an orange and just think about how light is going to be created here. So I'm going to take some orange and paint it onto the areas that I think that flame would probably brighten up. I'm going to set that to colour, and obviously that's way too much colour there. We don't want it anywhere near that much. We just want sort of a light colour on the top. And you can see that's just creating that orange glow. Might not even want so much on his face. Just slim that down slightly. And we could even create a brightness and contrast layer to do something similar, where we add some brightness and contrast. I'm going to invert that and choose where to apply it. So I'm just going to add some brightness and contrast to the side of his face there and up to his hands, and you can see how that kind of finishes the job. We can do something similar over on this side as well if we want, brighten up this side of his face a little bit maybe. It's not too bad. We could even use sort of a grey to maybe do a little bit less on this side. You can see it's brightened it up, not massively, whereas this bit has gone quite a lot. That there is your tutorial. That's going from basics, from basically nothing to having that all sorted for you. So hopefully that's been fun. I'm going to pop all of these in a file for you to have a look at. So watch the video, try and go along with it and see if that works for you. Ciao for now, guys.